When I bought a big laser, I needed a place to put it, so I designed and built my own workbench. But the world doesn't need another boring piece of shop furniture. So here are 5 ways I made my bench look more Star Warsy. Is there a term for that?
Well, there is now.
Let's make some cool stuff. Let's talk some Star Wars. If you know me at all, you know that I'm a big Star Wars fan. And a while back, I watched one of Brian from the Smuggler's Room's videos on how he made a Star Wars workbench. And he said he was going to Star Wars the crap out of that thing.
And of course, we're going to have to Star Wars the ever-living crap out of this thing. So let's do that.
And ever since I saw that video, I wanted to make my own. Let's dive right in with the top of the workbench. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars Rebels, so when thinking about the design for the tabletop, I wanted something from that show. And the obvious choice was the Phoenix Squadron logo.
It's the mark of the Phoenix Squadron.
It is that.
We happen to own a Cricut, so I simply found the logo online, and my wife used the app to get us a cut file. We made it as big as we possibly could, and I got to work putting it on the corner of the table. To fill in my template, I'm using Rub and Buff. I just thought this would kind of look cool and give it a rustic, metallic-y look. If you don't own a Cricut, you could hand draw this, or you could make yourself a template on a scroll saw or a bandsaw. And if you're not artistic at all, you could probably order one off a website like Send Cut Send by uploading a design and having them cut it out for you on whatever material you wanted. And then for some added design, I decided to just add a couple stripes down the side and the front of the workbench. I chose to do a gold stripe and a silver stripe because why not? And I'm only doing the corner and the front and the side because the laser is really large and it's going to take up a ton of room on top of the workbench and cover up whatever artwork I could put across all of it. So that's why my art is limited to just the corner and the front and the side. The next step is to make it grimy. Everything in Star Wars is grimy. So I just take some black acrylic paint, mix in some water, get myself a wash, and then brush some on and wipe it away with a paper towel. You can see on my first attempt I wasn't too happy with how dark it was, so I just add more water and that kind of lightens things back up. I added more water to my overall mixture and then got back to work. Just brush on, wipe away, repeat until I get the whole top covered. The key here is to randomize this as much as possible. If you overlap too much, then you end up with really, really dark spots, so try not to overlap and, make it look random and dirty. And then for finishing, I just brush on a clear semi-gloss polyurethane. Alright, poly's dry. Got some little tiny bumpies here and there, so we're going to do a light sanding with some 320 and then hit it again. I hit it with a second coat of polyurethane, and then before my third coat, I went over everything with some steel wool. Just rub, wipe off with a wet rag, and then again, third and final coat. I then repeated that whole wash and poly process for the rest of the workbench, but I'm pretty sure I only did 2 coats of polyurethane for the fronts and the sides. And with the bench finishing done, it's time to move on to greeblies. What is a greebly? Well, think of it as space flare.
We need to talk about your flare.
They're little components that look Star Warsy, but they don't really do anything. If you've ever been to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge or seen it, you know that this stuff is everywhere. It's just little things that make it look like it came out of a Star Wars universe. Space junk! I 3D printed most of my greeblies for this project, and I found all the files for free online on thingiverse.com. But you can find these things anywhere. Anything from a hard drive motor to a Lego can be used as a greebly. And that brings me to every Star Wars room builder's secret weapon, the juice lid. I really don't know how Simply Orange hasn't sponsored Brian's channel yet, as he has taught a whole army of us how to incorporate these things into our room builds. Anyhow, then it's on to priming and painting. I always prime everything, even if the spray paint says primer plus paint. But for these, I'm going with an undercoat of metallic spray paint. This stuff works really well and looks really shiny. But that leads us into our next topic, weathering. We'll start with masking fluid. Now I've got a link down in the description to get this on Amazon, but if you don't want to spend the money to buy this stuff, you can also use rubber cement. I find this stuff just works a lot better. You just brush on in random spots all over your silver metallic greeblies, and then you can use masking tape for bigger areas. But the whole idea here is eventually, after we paint everything black, we're going to peel away that masking stuff and reveal some scraped off metal pieces underneath. Thumbnail. That's the effect we're looking for right there. Speed this up. This is where the masking fluid comes in better than rubber cement. It just peels away so much easier. And there you go. You get kind of this old, aged, worn out paint but metal underneath kind of look. And if you'll notice, a lot of these pieces are actually 3D printed drawer pulls. I made myself a quick little jig here to make sure that all my drawer pulls were in line. Pretty simple, just drill a couple holes, make sure you clamp it down and you have a center line and, drill, screw in place. This is honestly one of the joys of 3D printing. I couldn't find Star Warsy drawer pulls anywhere, but on Thingiverse I did find some that really kind of meet the aesthetic, especially after all the weathering that we've done. With all of our pulls in place, let's jump back to those juice lids. We're doing the same exact technique here. Spray paint the metallic, do the masking, spray paint the black, peel everything off. And they don't look too Star Warsy like this, but we got some more things to add here soon. So that'll bring us to laser panels. I'm a sucker for these Art of Star Wars books, and I own pretty much all of them from my favorite movies and shows. So I went to the Rebels version and thumbed through some pages looking for a spark. The concept art of the inside of the ghost ship really drew me in and gave me some inspiration that I needed. I designed my files in GIMP, giving myself a consistent shape to be used on each drawer face, and then designed several variations with different lines and shapes within. I then brought the files into Inkscape to convert them to vector files, giving myself cut and engrave lines so that the laser knows what to do. The laser makes quick work of these, and since the Glowforge material comes with masking tape already on the material, I then just have to peel off the areas I want to paint first. I give those areas a spray with this dark teal I found online. I couldn't find this color I wanted at my local big box stores, so I ordered it off Amazon. Link down in the description. Once the paint is dry, I'm able to remove the rest of the masking tape, and then I hand paint the color I want for the rest. For this, I chose to go with gold. This is just cheapo paint that you can get at your local Michael's, Hobby Lobby, or Walmart. To weather my panels, I'm using a wash technique, which is just black acrylic paint mixed with water. Once you have it mixed, you just kind of wipe it on and rub it away with a paper towel. If things are too dark, you can kind of add more water and wipe it away, or not dark enough, add more black paint. Once I was done weathering, I came over everything with a clear semi-gloss polyurethane spray. To get rid of some of the sheen, I used some steel wool and give the panels a rub down. I don't like sanding or this, so I may have employed some cloning technology. Man, this is going to be amazing, right? I know, right? I mean, just wait until she figures out that we've figured out how to do cloning technology. I'm not sure how happy she's going to be about that. Hey, can I have a drink of that? No, man, go get your own. Come on, man, I have to go all the way back inside. All right, bud. Seriously? I did a couple rounds of a dry layout of my greeblies on the panels until I was satisfied with the look, and then I used epoxy to glue on my greeblies to the laser panels. This is probably overkill. Super glue would probably work just fine. I pre-drilled some holes in the corners of each panel so that I can screw them in place on the drawer faces. To screw them in, I use Craig screws instead of Phillips head screws, because I think they just look cooler and they match the aesthetic. A galaxy far, far away probably never had Mr. Phillips to invent such a thing. And one more thing on the panels. If you don't have a laser, you could easily make these on a bandsaw or a scroll saw, and then instead of the laser engraved lines, you could just cut these sections as smaller pieces and glue them on, which would add a pretty cool layered effect. Honestly, that may have been faster than designing all these files. I still had one tall skinny drawer to do, which would require these extra droid panels that would have multicolored lights and switches and whatnot. These would also get weathered up with my paint wash, and of course, glued and screwed in place on the drawer. With our panels in place, let's move on to our fifth tip, backlit wall control. I don't know about you guys, but I love me some wall control. When I saw that they had this design that didn't have the holes in it, I thought it really looked like one of the Death Star panels. And I also thought I'd never seen anybody backlight these things before, so let's try to light them up. So these LED lights I got off Amazon come with 2 rolls of 50 feet, and they're adhesive back, so you just peel off and stick them on the back of the wall control. I run the excess through the workbench and then screw in place. There was plenty of excess in this case, so I was able to run that through behind the workbench and use the remaining to actually light up these shelves I have for my supplies. We're halfway there, and I love it. Oh, looks so good. Yes. Be able to see all my materials. This is great. All right, let's try this with maybe the red. Oh, there we go. Oh, orange. Rebels. Nice. Very Bespin oriented. I like it. We're going with that for now. Seriously though, doesn't this look straight out of the end of Empire?
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Okay, so maybe not a Jedi yet, but these lit up panels do get me one step closer. Maybe. Anyhow, I run the excess through that last panel and then the big section that'll house my 3D printer, and then I have to unroll the whole spool and pull it all through the hole that I drilled on the other side of the workbench, and then adhere the lights all the way to the other wall control panel. But if you want some of these panels for yourself, there's a link down in the description to Wall Control's site for the panels that I used. These are the slotted only panels, and they've been on sale for months now, and for about 20 bucks a piece. And you get free shipping on orders over $50. And you can save 10% off your order with code DADCRAFTED. So that means you get 3 of these for just over 50 bucks. That's 4 feet of the 32-inch tall panels. And obviously Wall Control has a bunch of accessories on their site, but I own a 3D printer, so I found all these files for free on Thingiverse, holders for my drills, and just random hooks to hold various other objects. But anyway, you can find all kinds of things like this for Wall Control online for free. And that brings us to our bonus tip, Star Wars collectibles. If you have any spare room on top of your workbench, you better adorn it with your Star Wars knickknacks. But I also happen to make some LED light displays inspired from a galaxy far, far away. Right when I got my laser, I immediately designed some of these laser panels in GIMP and Inkscape. And the Falcon. And eventually, I got the Procreate app and drew up some of my favorite helmets. If you want any of these edge-lit acrylic lights, they are for sale in my Etsy shop. And you can find a link down in the description. Let's roll the footage of the beauty shots. Let me know in the comments if there are other ways that I could have made this thing even more Star Warsy. If you're interested in seeing how I designed this thing in Fusion 360, you can check out the other video on how I did that, link down in the description, or click the little thingy. Thanks for watching, cheers, and we'll see you on the next one.